Hey, what's up guys, Tim here with DaGoatCards, and today we have the 10 Ye Swordsoul Halqifibrax combo tutorial I promised. Pre-warning, this is going to be a long video, so there'll be like timestamps in the description if you want to skip ahead to certain combos, or or you just want to brush up on certain things. And like the Handtrap stuff will be at the end, so we'll do like an introductory set of combos, and then it'll get more complicated as we go basically. Yeah, so the first one is basically going to be Vessel Ashuna. And then, like, basically anything to pop off Baxia. With no Swordsoul, basically, right? So we'll Special Ashuna, make it into the Monk, then activate Vessel. That's going to send... So previously we'd send Protoss with this. Just going to make sure this is all in frame. Yeah, very good, nice. Okay. So previously this would send Protoss, but because Protoss is banned, we're now sending Longun. And then we are going... Oh, yeah, so we need to add as well. So we add Adhara, and then special summon Adhara, then turn these two into Halqifibrax. Halq effect is then going to get us the Despot. Then we turn these two into Auroradon. Auroradon effect summons 3 tokens, and Despot summons itself back. So this, if you had like a Swordsoul or whatever, is generally where you'd make floor. But because we don't have access to a Swordsoul, we're going to turn these 2 tokens and the Despot, because the token's level 3, into Yazi. And then we're going to use Auroradon's effect to pop Yazi. Yazi effect is then going to special summon a 1 from the deck. So we're going to special summon Taia. Then Taia effect is going to banish Longun. Because we're going to get back over Adhara now, so we're going to summon the token. Then we're going to use the Adhara Engrave to add back the Longun. So we got Longun back to our hand for later. So then we're going to synchro into Baxia. Taia effect is going to activate. We're not going to use Baxia because we're going first. Obviously all these combos are like slightly different when you go second because you'll be activating like sort of different effects, and obviously you'll use Yazi on your opponent's cards rather than Auroradon on your own. So then we're going to send Moye. And then we're going to set one of the random cards that we can set, and then Baxia pop it. Summon Moye. Moye is going to reveal Longun. Summon a token. And then we're going to synchro these two into Chijiao. Chijiao 1, Moye 2. So we'll just like shuffle it round up and then draw a card. It doesn't really matter what we draw for the sake of the combo video because basically whatever. It kind of does matter. So if we draw, we draw a Swordsoul. So basically if we draw a Swordsoul or a Worm, we just add Blackout here, because then we've got another interaction. But say we drew like another Cosmic Cyclone or something, right? Then we'd add basically anything that you want to discard for Longun. So something you can do, which is kind of cool, is you could, if you like wanted to, you could add Emergence here instead. And then go Emergence for like Ashuna, because then we have like more follow-up later. So we'll say that we'll do that, right? So we'll add Emergence for Ashuna. So then we'll go Longun effect, discarding the Ashuna we added. Summon the token. Summon the Longun, synchro these two into floor. Burn our opponent for 12 with Longun's effect. Always remember to do that, it's really important for making game a lot easier on the following turns. And then we'll use the Ashuna. It doesn't matter if that we added the Ashuna because we had one engraved anyway, but this is basically our follow-up Ashuna. And that will get us to an Adhara. And then we'll turn Adhara and Baxia into Chijiao. These are all in attack mode. This should probably be like, if Lightning Storm's probably be in defense, but you know what I mean. But for the sake of this, they're just in attack mode. Then, so our end board is 3 cards in hand with a random draw of Moye. This token, which is going to do a lot more than you think it would. Chijiao negating lights, Chafeng negating lights, Chijiao for a monster effect floor for an Omnigate. And then we have these Adhara and Ashuna in our graveyard for follow-up. So we can basically, like, Chijiao could banish floor, right? And then if this token lives, they have to answer this token, is basically the idea. Because if say they clear the rest of the board, but they don't clear this token, then we could, like, Adhara back this Taia, and then special summon Ashuna, and then, like, we can set up to go through with the Taia, like, on turn like 2. So basically just like generates a lot of follow-up for 2 cards, or 2.5 cards I guess, because we needed 1 to pop for Baxia. But outside of that, I think it's a pretty good combo. So I'll just quickly go to the next one. Okay, we're back. So the next one is just Ashuna Adhara. This one ends on the same board, but it doesn't, it like gets there in a different way, which is why I want to show, because obviously we're not Vessel sending Longyang, we're adding it later instead, so it gets a bit weird, but it's kind of just like reversing the sequencing sort of thing. So anyway, so that's for Special Summon Ashuna, make it into Monk, and then Special Summon Adhara, turn these two into Halq effect, we'll then summon the Deskbot. Then these two will turn into the Aurorodon, and this is all going to be very similar for the most part because a lot of our play lines start with this when we don't have a Swordsoul. So yeah, summon 3 tokens. I'm just going to put these up here so they don't get in the way. And then summon the token, the Deskbot, sorry. And then again, sync her into Yazi. And basically whenever we don't have a Swordsoul, we're going to be making Yazi to find the Swordsoul basically. So yep, Aurorodon pop Yazi, summon Taia, wherever Taia is, there it is. And then we'll go Taia effect, and this time we're going to banish Ashuna, which I know looks a bit odd, but you'll see why. Summon the token, and then Taia and the token, the Swordsoul token, will turn into Baxia. Taia effect will then mill Moyi. And then we will go Adhara effect to add back the Ashuna. And then we'll set one of our other random cards, Baxia effect will then pop it. Summoning back Moye, revealing Ashuna. You can basically end on the same thing, but instead of, if you don't have one of these, say you had like 3 Ash Blossoms instead, but this token would have to be used for the Baxia. But instead of making Floor, you'd make Cheng Yang, which is still fine, but it's just not as good. So for the example of where we don't draw a Swordsoul card, we're probably drawing a non-engine card, right? So yeah. Then Moye reveal Ashuna, summon its token, and then Synchro. Make Chijao, Moyi will draw 1, and then we'll just pick a random card, and then Chijao will add Longyang, then Longyang discard the Ashuna that we added back off at Adhara, summon itself in a token, then synchro these two, go into the floor, and then same thing again, Ashuna summons Adhara from the deck, then we turn these two into a Chowfang. So again, same sort of thing. Basically just in a different way, that we end on the token, which they have to clear because of we have the Adhara engrave. Oh, that's the difference with this one actually, sorry, is we don't end up with another Ashuna engrave, we just have an Adhara. That's like fine. And then we have Chowfang for light, Chijao for Monster Negate, Floor for Omni Negate, then whatever non-engine or whatever we drew, then Adhara engrave for follow-up. Because like I said, we can banish Taia, then add it back, right? Yeah, so same combo strength again. Be back in a sec with another one. Okay, so now we have the another 2-card combo. It's this time with Adhara and Vishuda. This combo is obviously not as good because we don't have Ashuna, but it still does a lot more than what this would do without Halq, right? Obviously, you can go down non-Halq lines with all these combos I'm going to show for the most part, but I'm just showing the Halq lines because that's like the thing people don't necessarily know yet, right? Special Vishuda, make it into Monk. This is always basically starting this way. Special Adhara. That's why we play 3 Adhara as well, just as like a side note, because this is like one of the best sort of like cards to start with now. Go and Halq, especially on the Despot. Then turn these two into Aurorodon, summon our 3 tokens, summon back the Despot. Then once again we will synchro these into Yazi. Then we will go Aurorodon effect, popping Yazi, summoning Taia. And then Taia effect is going to banish Vishuda. Again, because we need something to add back off Adhara for like Moyi, because we don't have any other sorts of or 1 cards, right? Summoning the token, and then synchro into Baxia. Obviously no effect to Baxia, but we will Taia mill Moyi. Now we're going to Adhara back Vishuda. And this is where it gets like a bit of a weird sort of hand, because you have a couple of decision trees from here. So basically, you can choose to keep the token. It's going to seem really weird. So you keep the token and pop like Imperm or something, right? I'll go through both. So you keep the token, pop the Imperm, summon back the Moyi, reveal the Vishuda, summon the token. Then you make these two into Chijao. Then Chijao, instead of adding like Longyang or something, we'll add Emergence. Then Emergence will activate, adding us Ashuna. And then basically if you like playing against Director or something, you would definitely go for Chalfing here. So you'd banish the Ashuna from hand to summon the Adhara, then make these two into the Chalfing. But there is an alternative way of doing this where, let's say like we really like all three of our non-engine cards, right? So instead of backseeing away the set, we'd backseer away the token. And that would summon out Moe. And then we'd reveal Vishuda, summon the Swordsoul token again, then synchro these two into Chijiao. And then we'd, obviously I forgot to Mo draw, but we'd Mo draw, so just draw like a random card. So we'll say we drew like a Telly or something. And then we'd add off Chijiao. And here we could add Longyang, or depending on the matchup, maybe we'd want Blackout because we have something to pop for free in the form of Baxia. But say we wanted an Omni Negate, we'd add Longyang instead, right? Bin Vishuda, summon Longyang, make the token, then make these two into flop. And then obviously we've got like 4 non-engine cards in hand potentially, plus these. But obviously we don't really have any follow-up from that, so it's not like the best thing ever, which is generally why I think I'd prefer to go down the Chalfing line, sorry, because when Chalfing dies it adds Ecclesia. But that's like one of the example combos that works with, the decision tree with Adhara Vishuda, depending on like the hand and stuff. But yeah. Okay, so now we're getting into the realms of like good combos. The ones before were like obviously pretty good, but we didn't have the Swordsoul engine. So now we've got both our engines, our hands are a lot better obviously, and we're doing a lot more. So this is with Taia, it can be with Moe, I'll show that a little bit later on, but this is like the best way to do it because it requires the least amount of cards basically. Special summon Ashuna, make it into Monk, and then Vessel, add Adhara, send Longyang, special Adhara. This is all looking very similar to the first few lines, and that's probably because it is, but it ends up slightly differently. Then That's not Auroradon, we'll special Despot. And then we'll make the Auroradon. Then Auroradon will summon it 3 tokens. Despot will summon back. And here, instead of having to go to Yazzie, because we don't have our Swordsoul cards, we can just go straight to floor. And then there's the floor. And then we normal summon Taia. Taia effect, banishing Longyang, summon a token. And then we will use our Adhara effect to add back Longyang. And then we can make these two, wrong way around, into Baxia. And then Taia effect will mill Moe. And then the cool part about this is because we don't have, because we basically have like an extra card, we didn't need to use Auroradon to pop Yazzie, and we didn't need to keep a token because we're generating the tokens as we go, so we can go Baxia effect, pop Auroradon, keep our non-engine cards in hand. So we'll special summon Moe, reveal Longyang, special summon token. And before you do anything else here, you're going to use the Ashuna effect. The reason being is otherwise we won't have enough monster zones. Well, you would, but it just feels weird to do it when you put stuff in the extra monster zone because that doesn't necessarily feel right to do. So we'll special summon Adhara. You can basically do it later, you can do it now, it doesn't really make any difference. Then turn these two into Chalfing. And then you turn these two into Chijiao. And then Chijiao effect will go to add. We Moe draw as well. So the reason why we go for Longyang here instead of like Taia or something is if we draw like another Swordsoul or a Worm card, we can also make a Chengyang in the end. So I'll show what happens if we don't. We can still go for Chengyang, but generally we're going to want to add Blackout here. So we'll say we drew the blank Chalice or whatever in this one, right? And then we'd add either, depending on the matchup, but generally we'll go for Blackout because it gives us like varied forms of interruption. And then, so this like hand would have ended on Chalfing for light, Chijiao for a monster negate, floor for an Omnigate, Longyang adds back to hand, draw a card off Moe, 2 non-engine cards, or 2 cards that we had in our starting hand, then a Blackout with Adhara Engrave for potential follow-up. But instead we're going to pretend that this chalice that we drew was just like a Swordsoul emergence or something, right? A Swordsoul or worm card. So then everything else would stay the same. We'd still add Blackout off our Chijia, but we'd go Long Young, discard emergence, summon Long Young, summon a token, then turn these two into Cheng Yang. And then we have Cheng Yang as well, which is obviously very, very good. I think this is particularly good against the Farm Knight deck because obviously when they're banishing stuff, we're also banishing their stuff, so that's pretty nice. And this is pretty hard board to crack without like something like Dark Ruler, and even then we still have Blackout and non-engine cards, so but yeah, so that was that one. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how to do it with Moye instead of Taia. It basically works out to be the same thing. It actually works out that it kind of also still plays around Handtraps pretty well. But yeah, we'll just get into it. So we go Special Summon Ashuna, make it into Monk, and then our Vessel will send Long Young, adding Adhara, Special Summon Adhara, make these two into Halq. Halq will then summon the Deskbot, turning these two into Auroradon, that's a Yazi. Auroradon effect will summon our 3 tokens, and then Deskbot will summon itself back. So, this point, obviously, if our opponent has Nib, they kind of have to Nib here, because they don't know our hand doesn't have a Swordsoul in it. Do you know what I mean? So, like, they have to Nib here, otherwise we just go floor and then their Nib is dead, unless they have 2 Handtraps, but if they have 2 Handtraps, they're better than us, right? But because they don't, we'll assume that our opponent doesn't have Nib. If we do get Nibbed here, I'll show you what to do a little bit later down the line. But yeah, we'll Synchro into Yazi, and then Auroradon pop Yazi, summoning Taia, and then Taia effect will banish Long Young, summon the token, and then the Adhara will add back the Long Young. So now our Moye stuff is live, which is nice, and we've also got Long Young live as well. We'll turn these two then into a Baxia. Taia effect will then mill us, basically, because we're not going to really end up using anything else, we're going to just send Adhara, because we've already got Moye, right? So we're just going to bin another copy of Adhara for some follow-up. We don't need this token anymore, so we're going to back 0-8 the token, summon back the Adhara or the Deskbot, it doesn't really matter which. Turn these two into Chafeng. And then we are going to go normal summon Moye, reveal Long Young, because we're not normal summoned yet, which is like a big benefit to the Halq stuff, is it, you know, with tennies are just free summons and stuff like that. So summon the token, turn these two into Chijia, and then there are 2 basically things that are going to happen here. We're going to draw off Chijia out of, draw off Moye out of Chijia. So we're going to go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, like you normally would, draw. So in this example, we'll draw Vishuda, so I'll show you what you want to add here. Basically, if we draw a Worm or a Swordsoul or whatever, we will add Blackout here. And the reason for that is because then we get to go discard this, summon floor, Long Young, sorry, then summon floor. Banner opponent for 12, always remember that. And then we have Blackout, Chafeng, floor, Chijia with Adhara and Ashuna Engrave, which is really, really good. But so say we don't draw the Vishuda here, just say we'll draw like another Imperm or something. Then depending on what you want to go for, is like kind of how it works out. So if you wanted like Blackout because it's good for like the trap decks and you know you're playing as traps or whatever, then go for Blackout. Or if you wanted to line around like Dark Ruler or something. Generally this is what I'd recommend, is adding Blackout, because then we get to keep the Long Young in hand for like follow up later, to go into like floor and stuff to push our opponent, or Cheng Yang to help close out games. So generally I'd recommend adding Blackout, but if you wanted to, you could just add like Emergence or something, then Emergence for a Swordsoul or a Vishuda, then do the floor Chijia line, or floor or Cheng Yang line from there. But yeah. Okay, what's up? We're back. Now we're back with how to play through Nibiru and Handtraps in general. But so the combo section is like done now. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's just like the baseline combos. There's obviously quite a few, but they're also varying on like what your hands are and your starting hands and your draws off Moye and stuff like that. But now we're into the section that most of you I think are here for, which is how to play around Handtraps and play through Handtraps. So we're going to start with Special Summon Ashuna. Make Monk, Vessel sends Long Young, adds Adhara, Special Summon Adhara, make these two. I'm just going to try and do this really fast. Halq summons the Deskbot, then turn these two into Auroradon. We get our 3 tokens, Deskbot summons itself back, and then we get nibbed, because otherwise we just make floor, right? So we've been Nibiru'd. It's happened. So we've got I'll just grab this as a token. So this is our Nibiru token that we've been given. Our opponent obviously has a Nibiru over here somewhere. So now our options basically are that we have Adhara Ashuna engraved, which is nice. And we also have Taia, we've not normal summon, which is basically the big appeal of the Halq stuff, is when your hand is good, like this one was. Pretty average, to be fair. This is like not exactly super absurd as a hand. We get to play around Nib, which is nice, because a lot of times the regular Swordsoul deck sort of kind of struggles to it a lot. So we go normal summon Taia, Taia, then banish Longyang, summon the token, synchro these. And this is something cool that we get to do on our first turn, which is we get to backseer our opponent. So we get to go backseer Chainlink 1, Taia Chainlink 2. Backseer will spin away the Nib. So then we go mill Moye, which is nice. And then we go Adhara, add back the Longyang, because we control the Nib token. And then we go, so this is where like things get a little bit different, obviously because we're playing post-Nib, so obviously we don't have to really think or fear about most things. Obviously this would have got, this probably would have got Veiler, Taia would have got Veiler, so we're now knowing that it's just Nib that we had to play through. All these like combo hands, all these like examples of how to play through hand traps will come from just playing through one hand trap. I'll just preface that now, because when they have two, right? They're just better than us. So then we go back to your effect, popping the token. Thank you for giving us a token opponent. Then Moye reveal Longyang, summon the token. And then we go synchro. I'll show you how to do this slightly differently as well, depending on what cards you want to keep and stuff like that. Chi 1, Moye 2, so we'll just draw. Draw Adhara. I'll show you what to do if we don't draw a worm. So here we can add Blackout, which is obviously pretty huge. And then we go discard for Longyang, summon a token. And this is where we got some like decision trees basically. Because we have this Ashuna engrave from earlier. So we could either go Ashuna here to make our Chaofeng, or we can just go straight to floor. It kind of depends on what you want to do. I would generally like say Cheng Yang floor is kind of Cheng Yang Chaofeng Qizhao is generally a little bit better now because of like the popularity of PK. Because it's all kind of like losing to ruler and stuff like that anyway. But yeah, so just for this example, we'll go into floor. But generally, like I said, I prefer the example of where instead of doing that, we have the token still, and then we go Ashuna into our third copy of Adhara, which is another reason to play free Adhara, actually, because this does come up. And then, in case you do draw one or something like random like that. And then when we make these two into a Chaofeng, then make these two into Cheng Yang. And this is, I think, like slightly stronger with the current format, but obviously it depends on what you feel like your matchups are. But yeah, this is obviously a particularly good like setup. Basically, the change would be if we didn't draw Adhara, we'd have added like a, say we drew like Ash, right? We'd have added a Swordsoul card instead to bin with Longyang. So it doesn't really make a difference. It basically just means like, depending on our draw, means we hit Blackout or not, which is obviously pretty good. But yeah, so I think that's like the two variations on this sort of line. But this is through Nib, which is obviously pretty impressive. So our opponent has like 4 cards. We have Cheng Yang, Chaofeng, Qizhao, or like, floor Qizhao. But I think this is better because it's basically more interactions. And then we have like the 3 non-engine cards, plus like we have an Adhara engrave, which we got off the Ashuna for follow-up as well, which I think is pretty nice. And obviously when Chaofeng dies, it will be searching us a card, which is also pretty huge. But yeah. Okay guys, we're back. So this is going to be how to play around or play through Nib with Moye. This is a little bit different to what we were showing in the combo tutorial because it's playing around hand traps. Basically, we're just going to assume that our opponent has Nib in hand. Maybe we've seen them play it in one of the earlier rounds. Maybe our friend told us they're playing it or something like that. So we're choosing to respect Nib basically with this hand. So we're going to special summon Ashuna, make it into Monk. And then we're going to Vessel. And instead of sending Longyang with Vessel here, it's going to look a bit weird, but we're going to send Taia and then add Adhara. Which I know looks really, really strange, but this will, I'll show you why this matters for when we get to it. So then we're going to special, make Halq. Halq and the desk bot will go into Auroradon, and Auroradon's tokens and will summon the tokens out. Despot will summon itself out, and then we get nibbed, right? So then we get a token, and our friend gets a Nibiru. So here we have a little bit of a weirder line. We're going to go Ashuna, especially summon another Adhara from the deck. It's always basically going to be another Adhara. There's not really any point in grabbing Vishuda turn 1. So then we are going to go Adhara Engrave to add back Ashuna. And then we're going to go normal summon Moye. We're doing all this because this is a nib token. I just should have mentioned that. Moye is then going to summon Ashuna. And we are locked into worms now, but that's not really going to make a difference. So this is why we sent Taia, so we could go Synchro into Baxia. And then Baxia Chainlink 1, Moye Chainlink 2, draw like a random card. Just put it back and draw like a blank. And then we're going to spin away the nib, go away nib. And then because we have Taia Engrave, we have access to this. So we can go Baxia, pop this token, summon back Taia. Then we can make these two into Chaffing, which is protecting us from lights or stopping our opponent from using lights. And then we're going to go Taia effect banish Moye, or basically anyone, but Moye is probably the best one to banish. Summon a token, and then make these two into Chijiao. Moye, Chijiao Chainlink 1, Taia Chainlink 2. Taia will just send, like, because we already have an extra copy of Adhara, we have an Ashuna back in hand as well. So we'll probably just send Vishuda, right? Just to get it into the grave so we can use it later or on our follow-up turn. Then Chijiao can add us Long Young or Blackout, so it depends what we want to go for. So like if we're playing against a trap deck, it's probably better to go for Blackout. If we're playing against like PK or something, it's probably better to go for Long Young, because then we can go Long Young, discard Ashuna, summon the token, make these two into Cheng Yang, or just have Blackout down here for the set. But then we're pretty strongly positioned here. Our opponent has 4 cards because we spun away their nib, and we have these bad boys plus whatever non-engine we have, which is pretty good. Yeah, so like I said, it's a slightly different play line. It's all sort of respective of how you choose to play around certain things. But yeah, I'll show you some more like weird play interactions that have come up for me in a second. Okay, so this is just like a little bonus combo, where basically this is going to be the first of the combos that play around Veiler, basically. So we don't really need these two, but it would just be these. But this will come up later in a later combo. So this is going to be normal summon Moye, reveal Vishuda, and basically everyone's going to Veiler this because it gets you there, right? And if you don't have the extended, then you brick out. So this is why we reveal Vishuda. So our opponent doesn't get the knowledge that we have Long Young, because obviously if we show Long Young, then they're going to Veiler. So that's just a little, like I said, a little tip to remember: do not reveal the information so early. So this gets Veilered, right? It's been interrupted. It's been Veilered or Impermed or whatever. So then we're going to go discard Vishuda, summon Long Young, summon the token. And obviously, this is where things basically end up being very, very similar for us. Not very similar for our opponent. Well, not very good for our opponent, sorry, because we turn these into a Chijiao. And then we get Moye draw. So we draw Moye Chainlink 1, Chijiao Chainlink 2. This is maybe one of the times actually where you want to go Chainlink 1, Moye Chainlink 2 Chijiao, because you want to banish Blackout. So actually we'll do that just for the sake of saying it. So Chainlink 1 Moye, Chainlink 2 Chijiao, which is the weirdest way to word that because it never normally comes up. So we're going to banish Blackout, and then just draw a card. Doesn't really matter what we draw. We just draw an Ashuna, summon the token, because we banish Blackout. So this effect will then trigger to summon a token, which is a nice little effect that doesn't really come up that often, but when it does, it's pretty nice. And then we'll make these two into a floor and burn our opponent for 12. And our opponent basically is 1 card down, and we have our standard setup. Obviously, this isn't great. This isn't anything needle fibery. It's just a bonus combo that I wanted to show, because a lot of people get Veilered on their Moye and they're like, oh, I don't really know what to do here. But this is sort of like how you progress without circles sometimes. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to play around Imperm or Veiler on your Moye when you have a tuner extender here, which is, again, I think a big reason to play the Hulk stuff because it gives you this like cool line. So this gets Veiler or Impermed, right? So then we E-Sally for Ogre. Then we turn these two into, obviously going second, we can make this into Baxia, to Yazi as well, which is cool. Turn these into Hulk. Hulk effect will then summon the Despot. This video has been going on for a while, so as you can imagine, I'm getting pretty tired of saying the same thing over and over again. Aurora effect is going to summon 3 tokens. Despot's going to summon itself out. And then, if you want to, you can go to floor here, but better than that, we're going to go for Yazi again to access Taia. Then we're going to go Erodon effect, popping the token and the Yazzie. We pop the token here because we don't really use the token for anything, so we may as well. We're going to then summon Taia from deck. And then Taia effect is going to banish Moyi because we can get this back later. You could banish Yazzie, but generally it's better to just banish Moyi. Summon the token. And then synchro into the Chi-Xiao. Tai 1, Chi-Xiao 2. We're going to add Long Young for the sake of it here because we want to... But you could add Blackout. You can add Blackout or Long Young here, basically. And then Taia is going to send Adhara when I can find it. It's here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so we're going to send Adhara. We're going to go Long Young, discard Vishuda, summon Long Young, summon a token, and then we're going to go Adhara effect to add back Moyi, so we have a little bit of follow-up as well. And then we're going to synchro these two into floor. And obviously burn your opponent for 12. So then we have like a pretty decent setup here. We got our we play for a Veiler or Imperm, so we got Chi-Xiao on the floor, plus whatever non-engine, plus a Moyi back in hand, plus an Erodon to help break their whatever they set up on the following turn. So that's pretty cool, I think. I think that's one of the big reasons for playing Telly, is it just gives you all this like nice setup. Yeah. Okay, last combo for the video is going to be a bonus combo. This is what I like to keep calling an Ash check. So in this hand, we're just going to do it with like the bare minimum, basically. We're going to go Special Summon Ashuna, make it into a Monk, and then we are going to Special Summon Adhara. And instead of going for Hulk straight away here, we're going to go Banish Ashuna, and if our opponent ashes this, we'll say our opponent has Ash Blossom, Joy Spring, or Ashuna because they don't want us to get to like starting play, right? Then we can just do the Hulk stuff as we were. So this is like through Ash, basically. Ashuna gets ashed. We're not locked into worms. We can summon Hulk and start proceeding to do our Hulk stuff that we would do in the first line of combo, basically, where we get to keep going like this, rather than just saying I'm just going to show you guys and talk over how it's kind of cool, because I am very bored of saying summon token multiple times. So yeah. So these are the steps, like from basically all the way through the combo. But this is basically just checking for Ash, like I said, which is pretty cool. And then obviously we go for Moyi or Taia here. Generally it's going to be Taia, I believe, because I just prefer doing this. So then Taia is going to banish Monk or Yazzie. It doesn't really make a difference which. And then we're back to, sorry, I don't know why it's got into my hand. Hasn't got into my hand yet anyway. So then we're going to add Adhara back the Ashuna. And then we're going to turn these two into the Baxia. And then we're going to go Taia Mill Moyo. And then we're going to go Baxia effect, popping the token because we don't need it anymore. Summoning Moyo. Moyo is going to reveal Ashuna. Summon ourselves a token, then Moyo and the token are going to turn into Chi-Xiao, draw one. We haven't drawn Blackout, which is fine because we're probably searching Long Young anyway. But we'll say that we didn't draw this good. We'll just say it's like a Vessel or something blank. So then we go Long Young. Then we go Long Young, discard Ashuna, summon, make the token, synchro, make a floor. Then we've burned our opponent for 12, and we ended on these, and this is after Ash checking, basically. Obviously, if they don't Ash, then we're just doing like the standard... We're playing with 10U cards rather than Hulk cards, which is... There's already a lot of tutorials out there, so you guys can go find those elsewhere, because I don't need to make that one, because that's basically how the deck's been playing for months. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. It took a while to make. It's pretty tiring. Lots and lots of repetition. So if you guys enjoy, please do like and subscribe. And let me know if there's another Dex combo videos you want me to make, or like any if I left anything out, especially, please let me know. Like I'll pin it in the comments or something if I missed like an important combo, because there were just so many to go over and so many variations that I wanted to just try and get this out for you guys, because it's starting a new format. I just want people to be able to start playing this deck, basically. But yeah, if you guys enjoy, please do like and subscribe. It would really help. Yeah, cheers guys.